Hello and welcome to day 153 of 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tomlins Nyback, and we're here talking about black issues in America. Talking about black people being in a vulnerable position overall. Um, how we come to share in the greater part of the dysfunction of America, the supposedly most wealthiest, most powerful nation on the earth. Um, Sometimes I feel like I'm just expecting us to issue our Pax Romana, um, just the way the world is going, just the way it flies off the hinges in a lot of ways. Mass shooting recently, this time a black man. Um, Nothing's justifiable in his behavior, yet I can probably say with confidence that whatever his issue was exacerbated by being black. Um, we can find plenty instances. In my life, I talk about literacy. We're going to get to the standard introduction in a moment, but financial literacy and this literacy, political and things like that. Blacks lack uh, an advocate literacy, a vulnerable literacy. How do we, uh, what is there to grasp when I'm feeling like my back is against the wall? When all I'm taught is power or hold it in or explode, whatnot, how to mitigate that. Black folks don't have a whole lot of that going on, being vulnerable, because we don't want to be perceived as weak and whatnot. So whatever the issues of this black American was, because he went into gun battle mode and they took him out. Um, I'm saying with confidence that it was probably exacerbated. Whether he reached out or something, we'll hear more as the news cycle continues and dies away, and we forget, and there's another shooting, and all this goes on. It's a kind of standard cycle here in America. Most powerful, richest, most violent. But I can say his issues were probably exacerbated, made more intense by not being able to reach out, for one, and not being able to come to some satisfactory space where he felt he'd been heard, recognized, respected, all those things. I guarantee we're not going to know officially till we get to the other side, right? We'll know all then. So, having said that, on that note, I want to, we're going to go into a lot of things. Hopefully we can squeeze it in our short time today that may be very relevant to what I just said about that black man, um, that black man's issues being exacerbated by his black skin. He's not justified in blowing up the place. I tell you, I can't tell you how often I wish I could just take people by the throat. I don't want to use weapons. I want to use my hand. I want to put my hands on you. Don't you know what you're doing? I don't want to use weapons, but I don't want to hurt and kill up innocent people either. I want to, talk to the individual or organization, the specific people. Man, these guys just be blowing everybody away. I can't think that he had 12 issues in the workplace. That's a lot. Somebody would have noticed something by then if he had issues with 12, well, actually upwards of 16, 17 people. That's a lot. Anyway, Black issues in America, navigating America, um, having a voice when we are not heard, when we don't know how to engage the system, not necessarily work in our favor all the time. Well, I'm not going to say it's not about, I'm not going to say it's about getting our way every time, but how do Black people engage the system in a way that they come out successful or not, having felt uh, they've been heard, that they've had an authentic experience, that people aren't giving them lip service. How does that come about? See, the slave, had things taken away, had feelings and all that, but had to bury them. There's no court, there's no advocate organization or group. The slave buried the feelings in most cases, or ran away. But the slave didn't engage. White power in society had all those avenues in the white creation of the world, not the slave. And I feel like that thought, those attitudes may be transmitted over the long term into today's society here hundreds of years later, which leads me perfectly into my introduction here. Is first part is the mind of America, Black mind, white mind. Is that still continuing? Is the Black man, if we were able to do a mental autopsy on him and see if some mechanisms of slavery were still at work in his life, um, uh, where we look at he snapped, and we call it terrorism and stuff. A lot of these big political hot button terms and whatnot. What if he just couldn't get heard? He'd been there all that time, and all of a sudden, I went through a similar thing in my workplace, at one of my workplaces, two of my workplaces. See, there's a pattern. You see, these white establishments are probably missing, some of the nuances, some of the subtleties of working with Black folks. You look at places today, there are workshops, and where we're having um, a lot of, sensitivity training around the LGBT community and all these other things, a lot of things. What about the Black folks that are living under their own PTSD and stuff like that? Come on, you know. It's like, well, we think we are in such denial, Black and white, about authentic needs. Conversely, that first thought has two parts. What about the white mind? This entitlement, this privilege, this security that they live under, and that they move about so freely in the nation and in the world with political power, rhetoric, military might, and whatnot. I'm just, wow. Every time I feel like I'm at a plateau of learning something, something new gets unraveled, something new gets revealed. Some of it's a response to sections of the community, aggrieved communities, depressed communities doing well. Therefore, the white power structure does make some adjustments. Some of it is they're just making it up as they go, seeing what they can get away with. Sometimes is what I'm looking at in the world. And my second thought, back to literacies, financial literacy, political literacy, all kinds of literacies. Without literacy, we can't move up our own dialectic, thesis, synthesis, I mean, sorry, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. If we have no language, we can't move up in our understanding and whatnot. Quick story, I work with a couple hearing impaired individuals, and we had to just get some work done. But one of the hearing impaired women were working in the area, so I tapped her shoulder, explained the best I could. We're coming through with work, and uh, she made it very clear she did not accept that proposal at all. It's the same in any language. It's body language. She had some utterances. I understood, and she was very adamant about it. And I could tell she was explaining, "I'm hearing impaired. You can't bring this machinery through here like that." So I tried to explain the best I could that I'm tapping you on the shoulder and talking to you to let you know. We're doing all this miming and stuff. You know, but it would have went better had I had the language, could she had been able to hear, language literacy, you know, financial literacy mostly. We can maneuver better with money is power. Money's the power. I had heard a story. Pastor says he was on a big ship, and the captain says, "Go ahead, turn the wheel." And the pastor turned the wheel, and there was no change in the ship because the ship was not under power. It wasn't going anywhere. So the literacy, the power. Literacy is power. So if we can get some financial literacy, understand some things, it's the beginning of changing our whole world. It's beginning in our minds. I'm inspired by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson, who got me fired up about smoothing out and understanding these issues. I read 3 of his works. First work, I say it more consistently now. If you get his written material, if you get his books, get this book, A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. I think that's his most important work. That's a book. It's marked up. It's going to be as well marked up as some of my old Bibles that I used to own, I'm sure. Second work, Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's plan to empower Black America. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com and the Heritage Institute in Washington, D.C. Behind me, you see the hashtag #us2 symbol, hashtag #us2 for there's Black women there conversing, supporting one another, having their conversation. There are differences between Black and white, Black men and Black women. There are some specific issues, male, female, sexes. Check out Blog Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of Black Facebook. And if you found me here on the World Wide Web, you are technologically literate, and you can find your community, your flavor, your voice here somewhere. If you can't, do what I did, although I know where my community is. But do what I did. Start your own right here on YouTube. Google. I'm going to give Google a shout out for letting me take up so much space. I don't want to jinx myself, but thank you, Google, whoever's running that show. Just write me if there's issues. Finally, Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work. And we get into that. It's called Story Time. And we get into that, and we're just parsing our way through the book. We're coming more frequently because now we're getting into some pretty dense material. We've laid some foundation framework, first 13 or so chapters, and now Tom's getting into some specifics, and as the specifics illustrate some issues with slave life. Today we are in Powernomics. Again, we took a day break to do our first of the month. Addie L. Wyatt and her involvement with the amalgamated meat cutters association and unions and stuff like that. Thank you, Addie. She's passed away 2012, but we qualified her for a um, first of the month shout out. Now, so Powernomics, if you have this text, we're on page 49, I guess, and we were talking about the reason for exclusivity in the black individuals aspiring for more in America, to get these immigrants, LGBTQ, disabled, all these groups out of the way, because these groups are the groups that flooded in. They were more preferable. Now, they're white or lighter colored, other nations and stuff like that. They're not, they have black Americans in them, but remember, black is it's the unacceptable. It's not the preferred. Um, the character of the people that are helped overtly in America. We're last place. Disregarded. Or we don't want to have big, extensive conversations anymore. America's like, we got out of the 60s. Good. So we don't want to get back in it. I don't think we have to be as tumultuous or violent as the 60s. There are more peaceful ways. But overall, black representation, the presentation, the needs are last place in America. Well, we got, the immigrants, DACA, handicapped, all these people use that language from the 60s, rights, inclusion, diversity, people of color, and all these things to make it like this spectrum, this acceptable spectrum that we just package everybody into, present that, and gather some wealth. Not so. Black people are referred to specifically, explicitly in the foundation documents of the nation, and we need to start from there. Dred Scott decision never overturned. Look that up. Dred Scott, get that explained to you. We talk about it here occasionally. All right, black, in the dictionary, if you remember Malcolm X movie, it's an outcast word. It's dark, dirty, and all that. Where white is angelic and pure and all these things. It's right. It's embedded. These issues are embedded right in our language. You can do a whole study. I did a whole semester in college about, not the whole semester, but there's a portion that philosopher talks about language and how that impacts our perception, our engagement in reality. Blacks, as far as our divisiveness, may be an outgrowth, an ongoing condition of a policy of meritorious manumission. Real quick review: meritorious manumission was granted to a slave if they put white life ahead of their own, helped increase productivity, made the master's business more prosperous, and most importantly, actually, is if they informed on other slaves, especially those considering escape or organizing the slaves on the plantation. The meritorious manumission, the reward was freedom. So that made a lot of disunity in the ranks of the slaves. There's issues about our own disunity, but we're talking today about why we wouldn't want help. Why not? You know, some of these groups, especially LGBT, they seem very like they cut through, politics and everything like a hot knife through butter. They just show up. Well, yeah, they go get theirs first, but they're not locking arms, with black folks um, as sympathetically as it may appear, right? Us black folks, you know, we're still not getting our rights. We're still not getting. I mean, these other groups, immigrants, LGBTQ, handicapped, they come to the table. They say, "Well, this is our needs. We need this." But the white government, the establishment, says, back in some of the days of emancipation, some of that language, 40 acres, a mule, $100, never material. I haven't done any quick hard study about that, but it's definitely not. It wasn't a very visible representation of what's going on. You know, I don't know any families that have old money from 40 acres, a mule, and $100. I know an old black family I know of has that. You know, blacks need to keep the pressure on, but we don't because we're in disunity right now. Hopefully someday we'll come together and understand what the need is. Some of the issues about what it is we want. Some people, some white folks are kind of confused. We want the rights and privileges, access, and right to choose, just like we see all the other groups, especially white groups going, white groups expressing. I talked a little bit yesterday about, the white couple. They're probably in their mid-20s. They got a kid, and they're walking down the sidewalk on a sunny day with a dog. Very cliche, you know. They're hitting their marks, you know, uh, the values of life that are pretty common in America, right? Um, well, one of these arguments about exclusivity is Dr. Anderson mentions education and how, education and busing and the integration of schools. And notice you had to take the black kids and transport. I did that a little bit, this transportation. Uh, long bus ride, 4 years. Wow. And I made it. But you'll take the white kids and send them to the black neighborhoods. Why not? Of course, we know why not. The white schools are better. So that's some of the failures of the integration, that this combining with, the black people need to be exclusive. Arabs are exclusive, Hispanics are exclusive, the Asians are exclusive, But the issue arises when black people want to talk about exclusion and gathering their own strength and own resources, circling their wagons. Some of the burdens that uh, black people are dealing with is the conditioning from slavery times, perception of the community, um, burden of movement in relation, especially to education. How we got to travel so far. I take public transportation. What a drag. I wish I had a car. I wish I could afford a car. I got to find out how to afford a car. I got to change my language. All that I just learned um, recently. America's always sidestepping, cope, and finding ways to cope with the issue instead of fixing the issue. That's the American way. Um, you know, this is created by whites. This is the white regime that we're under, and um, we got issues. Either we stay black as a community and create our own, like the Hmong or Arabs and Asians, or just continue to be the blended in people here in America. We're too passive, too docile. Um, we're the only group that strives to assimilate. No other group approaches the white power structure and wants to assimilate with what's going on. You notice that? They keep their language, they keep their culture, they keep their music. Very satisfied with where they're at. They're content to plod along. But white people, black folks want to assimilate and whatnot. And I think that's the problem with our argument for exclusion when we're talking to all these other groups that think they're locking arms with us and doing us a favor. That's just not the case. We need to come out on our own, like birds coming out of their shell. They're going to, once they come out of their shell, they're going to be exposed to the wild, and they have to have some strength. But if you go taking that bird, or even maybe a butterfly in a cocoon, and you help it out and stuff, it doesn't have the strength. It's not developed any strength, and it's helpless. That's what black folks. That's why we are weak and vulnerable in general in America. Well, we're not getting along. Boycott the bodega on the corner if it's not going to hire your people and invest back in the community. If it's just a economic vacuum cleaner raping the community, I say boycott it. Go to a bigger store if it's closer. Be put yourself in some discomfort for a while. Send a message to that place that if you're going to be in the community, you're going to interact. Uh, Engage us, and not just suck out the resources, lock your doors, and take that money and resources out of the community. We're the only group that assimilates. We want to do it just like there's some black TV shows, movies, and stuff. You can't tell if you close your eyes. You can't tell what color the people are. It's sad. We're capable of so much innovation. We should be as a totally unique people, properly paid for it, highest paid for it. We brought life to entertainment, music, a lot of areas. But we're content to let the white power structure dole out those things that are ours to begin with. We've been fooled into thinking that the white power structure owns that. Let's look at integration real quick on these last minute or so. What integration took from the black community. And this is a direct relation to being exclusive and getting our rights, being respected as a group, and the things we're after. I acknowledge other groups have their issues, and there are big ticket items politically out there and all that. But look at what blacks as a group have in relation to these newer groups that keep popping up almost every day. All right. Integration took away our sense of community, our leadership, talent, brain power, labor. It takes away our disposable income, our entertainment business issues, cultural assets, our roots just get crushed and trampled on, demolished, and it's normalized. I can't get, well, my family, oh, we know a couple generations back, but we don't know who we are as a people, where we come from. Blacks are so, I think, resentful and distasteful at the idea of what it is, where they come from. We're not proud. You've heard me say in the past, we need a celebration. We need a black holiday to really commemorate. And I mean, there's been so many historical events for black people, yet we don't have one. Every group, the Jews, Hispanics, every group's got the holidays. But we've adopted a lot of their holidays. Got to come out of that. It's troublesome to articulate because I have friends in all these communities, and so I do get challenged and questioned. Why are you saying this? I'm saying this because I want to get strong. If I go to the gym, I don't want you to lift my weights. I don't even want you to help me lift weights. That's not what the gym is for. The gym is so I lift my weights, I get stronger. You don't go to the gym. Could you imagine that? You'll run a race, having people manipulating your legs, trying to race. Everybody else is nice and strong and come to the table, get what they want. Black people need to figure that out on their own. Get back to some basics on these issues. I'm Tomlin's Nine back. That's day 153 out of the way. 365 days towards racial change. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.